Hey guys, Louie here. If you've been with me for a while, you already know a bit about me. I've been clean and sober for just over 4 years now. I struggled with a lot of substances over a plus or minus 17-year period. Towards the end of that, it was mostly marijuana and alcohol. This podcast is an effort to share the things that I've learned, share the things I've realized, and also the things that I've reflected on in the last 4 years of sobriety. My thoughts here are to help others who may be struggling with addiction, or possibly help people who are in the maintenance phase of their sobriety, or perhaps to help the normies out there to understand how the world looks from where we are seated. Getting sober was an extremely uncomfortable and at times painful thing. I'm pretty sure that's a relatively common way to put it. A lot of us experience that. But in the end, it was also one of the most rewarding things that I've ever undertaken. My life is different now. I'm truly happy. And this makes sobriety, in my eyes at least, something worthy of helping others to attain. In this episode, I have a discussion/interview with someone from my support group. This discussion was recorded back on October 30th of 2018. Right now we're in mid-June of 2019. So this was about 8 months ago. Since I've started this, I've been learning a lot about the audio and editing side of things. This is all new territory for me. I knew nothing about any of this stuff starting out. So after this intro, you'll hear this transition to another recording. In the future, the intro and discussions will all be part of the same recordings. So they won't be quite as disjointed. That being said, I also wanted to take a moment to recognize Doug Snyder for his assistance and expertise on the audio and production side of things. Especially in this case, the audio I provided him was pretty rough and raw. So thanks, Doug. Thanks for all you do, man. You'll also hear me review to an episode where I discuss things I'm now free of. That episode's been recorded. It'll likely be released as episode 7 or 8. At this point, I'm not quite sure, though. Also, if you found this helpful or insightful, please take a moment to share it with others. If you're in iTunes, scroll down to the ratings and review section. Provide me a rating and a review. Assuming that, this is worthy of that type of thing. Alright, so we'll get down to it. Hey, good evening, guys. This is Louie. I'm here with my buddy Anthony. You guys hear me talk about my support system very frequently. Having like-minded people in your life who value and have acquired the same thing that you're after and you want to acquire. People who care about you and who you also care about. And this is my buddy Anthony.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you and I were just talking about some of the different things that I recorded so far. And one of them was, things that I'm now free of. We talked about the interview situation and having to smoke or drink just the right amount so that I can be normal, but not too much to where people would know something was up. We talked about also, once I've won the job, then having that very same job at risk as a result of not being able to pass a drug test.
That fake piss, man.
Yeah. So before, when I encountered this was before the days of fake piss. And the only thing you had at that point was this hippy dippy stuff where you would drink it and then you drink like 4 bottles of water.
The cleanser.
Right. And supposedly you would be clean. Okay. The problem was it didn't work for people like
bullshit.
Right. Exactly.
Fucking bull. I never believed that. I've never drank one of those. I just knew it had to be bullshit. And people are mixed reviews online. You go online. Half of them are like, "Oh, I totally passed my drug test. I smoked 2 weeks earlier. And the real motherfuckers who are doing drugs every day, nobody's passing.
I smoked 5 minutes before.
Oh, yeah.
And I failed miserably.
Oh, I've been high
times.
during drug tests.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Not to tell war stories or glamorize any of that stuff, but for me, it was just about a lot of these things that I would do that deep down when I reflected on them, they weren't okay and I knew they were problems, but I would just ignore it and continue to live the way that I lived. I don't know what you thought about all that as it was going on. What'd you think of all that behavior?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, it was daily life. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Houston, and from a teenager, it was just like that. This is what we do. And I was thinking actually earlier today, too, about Halloween's coming up right now. And, I was thinking, okay, this year Halloween's on a Wednesday. So how many people are going to not show up to work, or they're going to show up to work hungover or late or disheveled or whatnot, and they're all going to say the same thing. Well, it was Halloween last night, so I had to go downtown and I had to get fucking wasted, and I had to stumble home or get a fucking Uber at 2:30 in the morning, even though my job's at 8 or 9. Hey, it was Halloween. I mean, what am I supposed to do? And dude, I'm not doing that tomorrow night. I'm not doing any of that tomorrow night. I'm actually excited. I'm going to hand out Halloween candy tomorrow night. I bought a house this year, which never would have been possible if I wasn't sober. And this is the first year I'm actually going to be able to hand out candy. So I'm like stoked about it. I went to Costco with my neighbor earlier. We stocked up on candy. So, that's the difference is when you're drinking or you're doing drugs all the time, it's like, I had so many things like that where it's like, oh, well, it was fucking New Year's. I had to do this. Or it was my birthday. I had to do this. Or it was 4th of July. I had to, whatever the fucking reason is, it's fucking Thursday. I had to do this, and you just justify it because you just think like everyone's doing this all the time. I thought everyone smoked weed. I thought everyone did. I thought everyone was taking ecstasy. I thought that was what everyone was doing. And then you get into fucking sobriety and you realize like, oh shit, like, no. I was the weird one. I was the crazy one doing all this stuff and justifying it as like, oh, this is just what life is.
Well, and not only that, but I felt like I would surround myself with other people who were like me.
Oh, yeah.
And that was part of convincing myself that what was going on wasn't really that much of an issue.
Oh, yeah. You get that cognitive bias.
Right, exactly. I would surround myself with other statistical outliers who would use beyond normal levels. And that was like a way to rationalize or justify my behavior. Oh, well, everybody's like this. Now, for the audience here, Anthony, how far into the journey are you at this point?
Well, it's interesting you phrase the question that way. I have a little over 2 years sober. I was sober July the 6th, 2016. Now we're into October 30th, 2018. So I got a little over 2 years. I have technically worked all 12 steps, but that's the way I say it's interesting you phrase the question that way because I don't have a sponsor right now. I'm just kind of looking for one. I had a sponsor and then I moved further north and he moved further south and blah, blah, blah. So, I'm in this weird state of my recovery where I'm not doing a lot of great maintenance and I need to be. And I'm not as active working the steps today as I should be. But I'm still hanging in here. I mean, I haven't drank. I haven't even wanted to drink or do any drugs in, over a year now. I haven't even had that urge. So I'm that far in the journey. The other part of it is I have a lot of amends that I still need to make. And that's part of I need to work the steps because it's like I have all these amends I've just like tabled because I said, well, fuck it. Like I'm sober. So like,
why do I need to do
right?
It, right?
Yeah. Why do I have to do this bullshit and confront like all this stuff that I don't even want to like revisit, but something inside of me is telling me like, no, you got to go back there. You got to work this stuff. So, that's where I'm at. I always say like I'm not the most perfect person to ever do recovery, but it's worked. Even the shit job I've done of it has worked pretty damn well in turning my life around.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned a couple of interesting things there, I think. One of the things you mentioned was obviously step work. Now, for you, when this all came about, was that, like for me, I went to an intensive outpatient program. That was what I needed. Mm-hmm. Then after that, I started going to regular meetings for maintenance. I got a sponsor. I worked the steps. I did all that. I did it out of pure fear because I'd become enslaved by my addiction so many times before that I just didn't want to go back. So I didn't know what to do, but I saw all these people around me and they did this and it worked for them. So I was like, all right, I'm all in. I'm going to do it. Now, help me understand that process for you. What did it take to achieve it? And then what did it take to continue it?
Awesome. Great question. So I was going to say I have a unique story, but I feel like everyone has a unique story, but mine's kind of weird. So I joke I'm probably the only guy who went to his first AA meeting and hadn't had a drink for like 3 months before that. Okay. Because I love to drink. I've been kicked out of every bar on 6th Street here in Austin. And I love to drink, but I got to a point where I couldn't drink anymore because I had too much consequences, right? And I love to do hard drugs. I love to go to raves and do ecstasy and cocaine, and I love that whole lifestyle. And I had too many consequences from that. I thought I went brain dead one time. So I was doing so much ecstasy in a short period of time. I was literally getting stupid. So I became this recluse where all I would do is smoke weed. And I would, because it was the only thing that like didn't have dire consequences all the time. And I could do it regularly. And the only thing it was costing me was my entire social life, my relationships with family, my finances, and my overall motivation. But hey, I'm not getting kicked out of places or have too much fear of being arrested. So I'm smoking weed every day, and I spent the 4th of July at home by myself smoking weed all day every day. Well, of course that was one day, but that's all I did. I'd either go to work or I'd be at home getting high, and I went out July the 5th. I was supposed to get back to work, but I didn't. I spent all day that day. You know, I threw my weed out, I think, at the end of the 4th, and then I bought more weed on the 5th, and I got high all day that day. And I had been trying to stop. So this is why I got away from alcohol and the hard drugs, too, is I started listening to this old radio show, Loveline, with Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla.
Right. It used to be on MTV back
Oh,
in the day.
dude, yeah. Unbelievable resource. And you can still find the episodes online. It's like lovelinetapes.com. It's totally free. And they have like over 1,000 episodes of this. So I would listen to that every day from like 2013 on. They actually, Adam and Dr. Drew still do a podcast, and I called into there about around 2013. They had Doug Benson on, who he did the documentary Super High Me, where he smoked weed every day for 30 days, like the guy from Super Size Me. Mm-hmm. And Doug Benson's known as like this weed comic, right? So I called in that day because I said, well, hey, I'm a big time pothead. I'm going to ask if they think I'm an addict. And
what, you thought it was going to be like cute or a joke or something, or were you being serious?
Well, both. Okay, it was 1 PM and I'm baked off my ass. Okay, and I call in. You could probably find the fucking episode. It's probably still up there, but I call in. I just knew I would get through because they had the weed guy on. And I explained, like, hey, you know, I don't have any of these textbook side effects. I've never been arrested. I'm graduating college on time. I have my own business. I'm doing pretty well. But I smoke weed all day, every day. In fact, I'm high right now. Do y'all think I'm a weed addict, or am I just a like successful guy who likes to smoke weed on occasion, right? Because that's what I've been telling myself.
Right. So I'm going to go ahead and interrupt here for a moment. Anthony and I recorded this about 10 months ago now, and between the time that we recorded this and now, he was actually able to go back and find the day that he called in to Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you guys now. I think there's some value in hearing that interaction, and then what we'll do is we'll go back to the discussion between Anthony and I.
Anthony, by the way, is on calling from Austin. He's 22. Anthony?
Hi, Adam. Thank you.
What's going on?
First of all, Doug, I'm a huge fan. I get Doug with High every Wednesday at 4:15 Pacific.
Oh, thanks for that plug. That was good.
My pleasure. Great to be talking to you. Adam and Drew, y'all are my heroes.
Thanks.
And I wanted to say, my question is, you know, I've been smoking weed like daily since I was 16, but I haven't had any of these negative problems you talk about. I'm about to graduate university a semester early. I own my own business. I do stand-up most nights of the week, which you could say is a problem. But, you know, at what point do you call it an addiction, and at what point is it just like, you know, that dude just smokes weed and also has goals, you know?
That's a tough question because
Doug's license plate frame. That's his new license plate frame for when he gets his new Sentra. That dude smokes weed and has goals.
What's interesting is you can hear the biological change in Anthony's voice.
You do sound like a stoner, dude.
Yeah, so there's a change. So there's been some consequence. The question is, what consequence is sufficient to motivate you to want to stop? And addiction is about consequences, and a lot of people smoke pot for long periods of time, and it works for them. And as long as it works for somebody, they're not going to stop. So it's when it becomes a problem. And cannabis has a really interesting kind of natural history to it. What happens is it's working, and then it starts wearing off. At some point in everyone's relationship with pot, the high starts wearing off. For some people, it's a year. For some people, it's 30 years. And we don't know why there's that huge difference. And so, Anthony, if the high starts wearing off, what do?
You smoke more.
Smoke more pot, get more powerful pot, get better weed. And that actually, that makes things worse typically. And then people often get depressed on the heel of that. And when they get depressed, they start looking for other things to get high with, and that's when they graduate to the stuff.
Drew, whether it's booze or pills or pot or whatever, is there a fair? Would you accept a fair? Feedback. So put Anthony on hold. Would you accept something, for instance, like these terms?
Okay.
They said, okay, you think you may have a problem with this substance, this pill, this weed, whatever it is. Let's see if you can go 2 months and you can only partake on a weekend, like in a Saturday night social, booze, pills, whatever you're into. Just let's see, nothing during the week. Saturday night comes around. I think if you said to people, quit for a month, they'd go, fuck that. Yeah. But if you said, all right, what day is it? Tuesday? No pot till Saturday night when you're at a party.
You would say, what
do you think?
I did a whole podcast, you can look that one up for me, on moderation. Mm-hmm. There's a team out there that's doing moderation. They're trying to select people. There may be a population within addicts who are earlier in the disease, literally like before they really throw the switch and lose control, that may be responsive to moderation. And so these guys are trying to work with that population. We'll get you the episode.
Would you ask Anthony to, let's say, go the weekdays without smoking and toke out on the weekend and see if you can pull it off? And if you can't, you're probably...
Some people can dial it down and they're happier when they do. But here's the thing. When people don't want to stop and it's working for them, it's very hard to have that conversation.
Yeah, he's asking... He's
saying, do I have a problem? It's like, yeah, you probably will develop a problem.
But he's bringing it up because he thinks somewhere in the back of his mind that there may be a problem. Or if there's not a problem now, there's going to be a problem.
He's wondering why it's not a problem yet.
Episode 50. Episode 50 is the one you're going to... But Adam, my point is it takes a lot of work and effort to stop. And people have to be motivated to do that. Yeah. The motivation when it's working is hard to get that motivation. But I understand that.
I find people come to me all the time and say, I love your shows, I love what you do, I wish I could smoke with you, but I have a drug test coming up, or I'm applying for a job, or I'm entering the military, whatever it is. And people are stopping smoking for those motivations all the time. Yeah. And an alcoholic can't just
can. Some can, and some can't.
But they don't.
And the problem with what Adam's model holds is that there's often still progression, and you're and if there's progression, why not just let it progress anyway?
Well, I mean, I'll just give you a simple simple thing. It's not the same, but it's close. I fucking love pie. Like, I would have a nice slab of banana cream pie. I would finish every meal with a big wedge of banana cream pie and or pumpkin, depending on what the season was. But I would have a nice piece of pie with I'd have it for breakfast with a cup of coffee, but I'd certainly finish every dinner with a piece of pie. I really would. Yeah. I really fucking love pie. Yeah. But I sit around and I go, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work for me. But when Thanksgiving comes around, I'll have 3 pieces of fucking pie with extra whipped cream. And if it's a weekend or whatever, I have the pie. So I like pie.
Not addict.
I'm not dependent on it, but I really do fucking like pie.
But that's the trouble with the difference between pie and pot, though, is if you only have pot every Saturday, that Saturday you're going to go really crazy with the pot. At least with pie, you could get full. You also not eating pie for a week doesn't make the pie taste extra incredible when you do.
But you
like weed, if you wait a week, you're going to get an extra high because you weren't smoking for a whole week.
Well,
your tolerance will come back down.
That's a little argument for waiting out the week.
But then that gets into the whole binge territory and how people only drink on Saturday night, and those people are they're worthless all day Sunday because they drank so much on Saturday night.
All right, guys. So from that point, it kind of devolves into different topics. Anthony doesn't really come back, so I'm going to go back to the discussion between Anthony and I.
And Dr. Drew said, well, here's the deal. That might be working for you right now, but eventually it's not going to work for you. And at that point, you're either going to start doing harder drugs, which I was already doing, or you're going to get help, get into a program, get a sponsor, and work the steps, right? And then Adam Carolla said, hey, how about this? If you can only smoke weed on the weekends, then you're probably good and you're not an addict. But if you can't, then you need to get some help.
Hold on. Did everybody hear what he just said? Did everybody hear what he just said? If I could only tell you how many times my brain used that line on me, if I can only do X type of drug at Y type of time, then I'm okay and continue with my behavior.
Oh, yeah. And so guess whose advice I took, right? So I spent the next 3 years trying it the Adam Carolla way. I tried every method in the book. I was doing like self-hypnosis on YouTube. I was like rationing shit. And this is why I started like, oh, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm just going to smoke weed. Now it's like my medicine, but I only do my medicine in the evenings. Like it was all every combination of only this substance at this time, right? For 3 years, dude. I can't tell you how many bongs I threw away, gave away, destroyed, how much weed I just threw in dumpsters because I said, oh, now I'm definitely done, or for this reason I'm definitely done. I would get so high, I would order Pizza Hut. I can't eat Pizza Hut anymore. I would order Pizza Hut. This happened like 3 different fucking times because I just learned my lesson really easily, right? I'd order Pizza Hut and I'd eat so much of it that the munchies would go away and I ended up throwing it up later that night, okay? And I'm not an eating disorder guy, okay? But that's the level I was on. So I tried this for 3 fucking years, and I could never do it the Adam Carolla way, and I tried everything in the book. And so July the 5th, I spent all day smoking weed. I go to Whataburger, and I get what I get at Whataburger. I get this cup of gravy. I like to dip my fries in gravy at Whataburger. It's just one of the little habits I have. So I'm in my car. I used to joke, you know, I eat like the worst way ever. I eat it in the car in the parking lot of where I just bought it. So I'm in the Whataburger parking lot. I'm eating this burger and fries, and I spill the gravy all over the console of my car. And I'm sitting there like, what a fucking loser I am. I have no friends. I have this business that's supposedly successful. I'm doing okay. I'm living in a decent place. And I'm fucking empty inside. And now I got gravy all over my car. And so I drive home and I just leave it there. And the gravy just like cakes on to the console. It dries up in the morning. It's all caked on there. And I'm sitting there in my apartment the next day, sober yet so far. And I'm talking to this guy that I work with. He just happened to call me for like general advice. We work in the same industry, and he's calling me like for other shit. And we're in the same office. And I was mentioning like, oh, this vendor's doing this party boat thing on Lake Travis. They're going to do this party boat. It's going to be awesome. He goes, oh, I don't go to stuff like that. I said, what do you mean? He goes, oh, I'm sober, dude. I said, oh, like sober, like you go to meetings and shit? And he's like, yeah, dude, I've been sober for like 7 years. I said, oh, wow. So what's that like? So I keep kind of asking questions about what he's doing there, and he kind of flips the script on me. And he goes, hey, do you think you might have a problem with drugs and alcohol? And I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I think I do. And he said, well, what are you doing at noon today? I said, well, I mean, I don't know. I have nothing planned so far. He says, meet me at this group. Let's go to a meeting. I'll take you to a meeting. He goes, and I go, no, you know, I've been talking about doing 12-step group, but, you know, I don't want to do it yet. I mean, maybe sometime in the future. And he just cuts me off and goes, dude, cut your bullshit. Just come with me at noon today. And hey, if it sucks, you don't like it, it's 1 hour, at least we get to hang out, and you never have to go back. Just come to this meeting, dude. What do you have to lose? And I said, all right, fuck it, I'll go to this meeting. And dude, that meeting was so, you know, I was going to do Marijuana Anonymous only, because at that time I was just smoking weed. And the same guy, he says, well, here's the thing, dude. All these 12-step programs, they're all great, but they all come from AA. So maybe you haven't had a drink in several months, but if you think back, you probably have a problem with alcohol too, if you have a problem with this other substance. So, you know, these things are all symptoms of a greater problem, right? Whatever absolutely. Your substance is, or whatever you're into, you know, these porn guys or whatever your thing is, it's a symptom of an issue, right? So it all comes from this. So you go to AA, you're getting like the pure, unadulterated version of this shit that's been replicated for all these other substances. So you might as well just come to AA. So that's why I'm the first guy to go to an AA meeting where I hadn't had a drink for 3 months. Right. But I go to this meeting And dude, it's all these people who, I thought AA was a cult, dude. Like I thought, I thought it was the shit where like they fucking get you to believe in God, and then you gotta fucking, give them money. They pass the basket just like church. I had this whole thing about church being a fucking scam, and I thought that was the same type of scam. And then the 12 step, you're supposed to carry the message to others. It's like, oh, now I'm recruiting people. Like what a fucking thing this is, right? I had all these stupid ideas. I go there. It's the fucking nicest bunch of people I've ever met in my life. I never met nicer people than at this AA meeting. And this dude, they do this thing in the meeting. They say, if you're at your first AA meeting, if you'll please, raise your hand and just introduce yourself by first name only, right? And I raised my hand. And I actually went with that. I said, hey, my name's Anthony. I'm an alcoholic. And he pointed at me and he goes, okay, this meeting is all about you. And I said, oh, fucking great. Here we go. But it turned out, basically, the way he structured the meeting was he said, let's have everybody just kind of tell a little bit of their story of kind of what they were like, what happened, and what they're like now. And, dude, these people went all around the room. I was all ears, dude. And there was a dude who shared that was living under a bridge before he got there. And there was a dude who shared who was a lawyer, had a successful law practice, and never been arrested in his life before he went to AA, right? And the lawyer I related to on such a level because I've never been arrested. I have a professional business. I'm living this life on the outside, but this horrible life on the inside.
Right, you're keeping it together,
right,
so to speak.
Yeah. I'm the functional fucking alcoholic, quote unquote. And then I related real hard to him. And then the dude living under a bridge, I related just as hard, dude. The same emotions, the same habits, the same fucking bullshit story I was telling myself. It was the exact same. And the women, everyone. I had the same story as all of these people. The nouns were different, right? The people, places, and things were different, but the verbs were the same.
Right.
And I just was like, shit, like I could do this. And you know what? Nobody really asked for my phone number, but everyone gave me theirs. And they gave me a list of people I could call, and they said, hey, look, dude, just don't drink today. Come back tomorrow. And I got a lot out of that meeting, so I came back the next day, dude. And then this dude, Harry, he invited me to this men's meeting on a Saturday morning. He actually invited me to breakfast too, but breakfast was at like 7:30, and I wasn't going to fucking do that. But I went to the men's meeting. That's when I met my sponsor. And the rest is history. My sponsor laid out all the stuff he wanted me to do. And, I just did it, dude. I was just ready. I figured I tried everything else. Maybe these people know some shit that I don't know, so I'll just do what they want me to do.
Right. So, a couple of things I wanted to dig into a little more. We'll go in order here, but there were a couple of things you said that were very interesting. One of them was you were empty inside, and I want you to explain a little more about what that means to you when you describe it as being empty inside. The other thing I wanted to mention though was the way that we start this journey varies from person to person. And that was the reason I was asking you about that. For me, I had to go to an IOP program. Then after I got out of that, I went into a 12-step program. But it varies. Everybody can find their path in a different way. And then the other thing that you mentioned was, you talked about not having a sponsor right now and not working the steps right now, here and now. But I think that everyone's maintenance program is a little bit different. Maybe for some people, it's constantly recycling and working the steps in a formal manner. Maybe for other people, it might not be like that. But the point is, you need to figure out what your individual program is, I think. That's what's important for all of us, and then work it on a regular basis, But tell me more about being empty inside and what that meant to you. Describe that for me.
Okay, so here's how that was for me.
Mm-hmm.
On the outside, I have this shell, right? I'm the actor, right? I'm this guy who, I graduated in 4 years from college. I got this professional business. I wear a fucking suit to work, right? Like I got a car and I paid it off, right? I'm this fucking, middle class hero over here, But I know on the inside, I got a big time problem. I know I can't stop doing this. I don't have meaningful relationships. All the people I hang around with revolves around drug use. Okay, all the people. I'm missing out on weddings. I've to this day I've never been to a wedding, and I got invited to like 5 different weddings. And I just never went to any of them. I just found an excuse because, I can't make it because traveling and trying to find drugs and this and that. I didn't want to deal with it, dude. I just weighed the pros and cons, and I would just always default to, I'd rather just be at home getting high. I'd just rather do that. So I had no meaning in my life. I had no motivation. I wasn't pushing forward in any way at all. I mean, in any way. I was getting fatter. Every aspect of my life was not improving. It was actually getting worse. And I knew that, and I felt helpless because I didn't think, I tried all this shit and I was never able to do anything about it. And I knew what the problem was, but I couldn't help the problem. And at a certain point, I didn't really care. It was like, as long as I can get high and pay my bills, I'm kind of complacent. So I guess empty inside is sort of complacency in a lot of ways for me.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then another parallel, you mentioned you didn't have too many consequences from smoking weed. So that became the thing that it was okay for you to do, right? I can absolutely relate to that. At my best, I would get wasted every day and get high all day, every day. At my worst, I would almost overdose on cocaine, perhaps kill myself while hallucinating on, whatever, who knows what type of hallucinogen. There was a lot of madness that happened, but for the last 10 years or 9 years of my before I started the journey, the way I rationalized it to myself was, if I just smoke and just drink, I can keep it together. The consequences aren't that dire.
Right.
So I absolutely relate to that. Absolutely.
And you notice I hid in there. I didn't have any consequences except, all my relationships with my family, my friends, my fucking social life, my finance. Yeah, I didn't have any consequences, but I had all this bullshit in the background that I was just pushing off.
Right. And you were tricking yourself that it was all okay,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Now, how old were you when you started the journey to become sober, Anthony?
24.
Ah, okay. So I'm wondering if the reason maybe you didn't have terrible consequences, you got started a lot earlier than me.
Oh, yeah.
I got started at 34.
Right, yeah.
So, I just had started paying the price with all the consequences probably at about 24 or 25 years old.
Yeah.
That
sounds right.
Having started when I was 16 or 17. Yeah. So that was when, I started going to jail. I went to jail a couple of times. Nothing bad. I have this messed up rule. As long as you can get out of jail in 10 or 12 hours, it's not that bad.
Yeah. I never heard that before. Oh, yeah. I guess it's true, yeah.
I told my 8-year-old that shit the other day. My wife was pissed. I'm like, whatever, kid. As long as you can get out in 10 or 12 hours, whatever you did couldn't be that bad.
Yeah.
But anyway, went to jail a couple times. I've absolutely lost jobs. I've lost jobs before I even had the job as a result of failed drug tests. Yeah, all kinds of ridiculousness occurred. But for me, the big scary consequence was losing my relationship with my wife and then consequently losing access to my children.
Right.
That's a whole nother topic. Is we all kind of know how things turn out for the dads when divorces happen in this country. At least for the most part, statistically. So my big motivating factor was to keep my relationship together with my wife. I do love her with all my heart. But also another concern was that if it didn't work, then I was not going to have access to my kids, and I was not going to be able to prepare them for this world as much as I would like to have.
Right.
But I had a lot of other consequences leading up to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I saw the writing on the wall for me. I knew it was only a matter of time, and it was not getting any better.
Yeah, we look at other people, and I have a recording about this. I don't know if I'm going to put it out before or after I post this, but the recording talks about what might have been.
Right.
So I feel like for you were probably looking at people who are further down the road of addiction, seeing what was going on with them, and in your mind, that is what might have been for Anthony.
Right.
If you continued on the path you were on.
Oh, yeah. Well,
is that right?
Oh, that's 100% right. And, last week I went to a funeral for my buddy who passed away, and And this was a guy. So one thing Dr. Drew talks about, and I don't know how true this is or what. I'm not a fucking expert, but he always talks about with people particularly who get really into weed that they generally progress to meth. Like there's some. He talks about this all the time that what happens with people when they get really addicted to marijuana is they're getting high all the time so much. And they start feeling like so much like a fucking loser because they're not doing anything. They're getting fucking lazy all the time that they want to do something that's going to pick them up, you know? So a lot of times they get into speed, you know, and you see these people all over the place now taking these Adderalls. What is Adderall? Okay, it's meth.
It's meth made in the lab by a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, I used to fucking snort Adderalls.
Right.
You know? And so he sees a lot that these people, they start doing meth because they feel better when they're on it, right? And it's not a problem for a long time until it's a problem. Well, my buddy who passed away, and we still don't know exactly how he died, so the jury's still out on that. But I talked to one of our friends who still lives in my hometown and was hanging out with him very shortly before he died. I talked to him yesterday after the funeral, and this buddy said, our friend John, he had to take these drug tests for probation, and he would do the drug test 2-step, he'd take the drug test and then he'd go to his buddy's house and get fucked up for a couple days because he knew he wouldn't have to do a drug test for a little while.
Just rip roaring, devastated, right?
Yeah. So my buddy was saying that him and John, who passed away, that's what they would do is John would take his drug test and then he'd go hang out with our buddy and they would get all fucked up. And he said that John hit him up a few weeks ago. He's like, hey, can you get me $100 worth of meth? I really want to do meth. And we had no idea this guy was doing meth. I mean, they were doing coke and pills and whatnot, but I think meth is kind of stepping it up a notch, but that was sort of a wake-up call for me of like, dude, that totally could have been me. I had to quit taking Adderall. I have this embarrassing thing where I used to take Adderall all the time, and then I quit taking it because it stopped becoming useful to me. Like I wouldn't be... you start taking Adderall, you get focused and you do a lot of shit and you take care of business. Well, it got to a point where I would just take Adderall and I would just masturbate like all fucking day and smoke cigarettes. So, nobody has that story but me. But I had to quit. That everyone laughs when I tell them that. And it's painfully true. And so, but if I wasn't doing Adderall, maybe I would have gotten into meth. I mean, maybe I would have progressed into all this other shit. My buddy I was talking to, I mean, he has his kids taken away from him with CPS. Him and his wife are doing pills all the time. They're still fucked up. He was telling me yesterday on the phone, oh, I'm sober now. I mean, I'm just drinking and smoking a little bit. And I said, dude, you should really get to a meeting, man. I mean, you might need some help, dude. I mean, I'm not trying to preach. I'm your friend no matter what. I don't see you all the time anyway, but I'm here for you. But everything changed in my life when I got actually sober. And I actually went to the meetings and did the shit. So I'm kind of seeing it play out in a few of my friends' lives right now. And 2 of them now have passed away, both from either direct overdoses or at least complications from the lifestyle they were living.
Right.
And I don't know if we'll find out about John exactly what happened, but at least it was complications. He was not living his best life.
Yeah, so I think it's funny that I'm sorry about your buddy, by the way.
Yeah, it's all right.
I think it's suspicious that you mentioned the whole progressing from marijuana to a stimulant. That is how I went. That's how I started doing coke.
Right.
Is I was smoking weed all day, every day, and then I needed coke in order to balance out the weed because I would be so lethargic from smoking and getting high. And then my use of cocaine took on a life of its own until I was just doing ridiculous quantities, and I literally almost died a couple nights in a row.
And that's why booze and coke go well together so well.
Right, because they balance each other out, in a sense, and it's very, it's pretty dangerous, And then you were talking about your buddy with the pills and the kids and CPS and all that.
Shit.
And what I realized is we can extend our hand to people, but it doesn't matter until they have had enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter until they, in their mind, have decided, I have had enough of this.
Yeah.
And this means the consequences and the pain. And if they haven't hit that point where they've had enough and they've said to themselves they've had enough, there's nothing anyone can do.
Right. And I hate to be the fucking Dr. Drew nut hugger, but he always says, He always says you can't give somebody get it. You know?
Right.
You can't give somebody get it. And I have a stepbrother who he's been arrested for all kinds of, you know, possession and intent and all this type of shit. And he's taking Xanax bars, and now he's only smoking weed or whatever. And his mom, my stepmom, and my dad, they're always telling him, dude, you should just call Anthony and just see what his experience has been. Right? And I get texts from him every now and then, hey, your stepbro, he might call you, so look out for his call. If he calls you, he's never called me, dude. He's never called me. And I see this dude, and smart dude, good looking guy, got a lot of confidence. He's got it going on, and he's got this big fucking problem that's keeping him from so much potential in his life, and there's nothing we could do about it. Nothing.
No, nothing. And I used to be that guy. I'm sure that's how my parents, my brothers and sisters, and everyone that cared about me, all the ex-girlfriends, they all probably felt that way about me.
Oh, you know same here, dude.
Right.
I was Mr. Lost Potential. Oh. Oh, yeah. I had the sash and everything. Oh.
Mr. Lost Potential, huh?
Oh, yeah. I could have won awards for losing potential. Oh. Well,
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to have met you.
Yeah.
You know?
Likewise.
And, I value the relationship that we have, and being able to help each other out and talk about real things together. And it's not just about talking about successes, but it's also talking about failures and ways we can, you know, improve ourselves and things like that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I value that. I don't have to hold back with Anthony.
No.
You know?
You can't defend me. It's impossible, dude.
Right.
And, you know, that's what kept me sober was friendships like with you and some of the other people that we know. And, you know, I'm not the prayer and meditation guy. You know, I don't do a lot of the shit they tell you to do, even though I should.
Right.
But the thing that keeps me sober is all the people I've met and all the fucking awesome things that we do together and just the fun we have. And the fact that there's no ulterior motives. There's no, like, maybe this guy's got some shit that I could do, so I'll hang out with him or whatever. It's just like we got this commonality in the shit that we deal with. And we're also, like, friends on a personal level, and we have a good time. I mean, I've had so much fun, you know, especially when I was earlier in sobriety. I would want to go get high or whatever I wanted to do, and then I would say, yeah, but I got to trade in all these friends that I made if I go do that. I can't hang out with these people. I would even bargain with, like, well, maybe I could just do this and not tell them, but you can't. It's not possible. So, I wouldn't trade the friendship for any fucking drug, dude. No way.
Yeah. I mean, you're trading it for a bunch of pain, a
bunch
of misery and suffering. And at least that's how I see it. That's the way I see it now.
Yeah,
you know?
Same.
Now, I didn't see it that way. You know, I didn't see it that way 6 years ago.
Mm-mm.
You know, but now I'm clear. I can perceive things with clarity the way they are, at least in my reality.
Right.
And I know that if I trade it in, that's what I'm trading it in for. I'm trading in all these good things for a bunch of pain and misery and suffering. You know?
Yep.
So, all right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up, brother.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for opening up to everybody. All right. So, hey, guys. Louie here. So, this was originally recorded, like I said, a day or two before October, before Halloween in 2018. So, obviously, it's been 10 months. A lot of things have changed in the last 10 months. But this has been something I've been trying to work on this whole time, this specific episode. For those of you curious about Anthony, he's still clean. He's been clean for over 3 years now. We interact on a regular basis. Like I said, he's part of my support system and I'm part of his. About the episode, so there were some different things that I wanted to draw attention to. Right around the 16-minute mark, maybe 16 minutes and 15 seconds, Dr. Drew talks about moderation, and he talks about how early on that some people are capable of moderating their use, right? For me, moderation was something I could do until I was maybe 20, 21, 22 years old. And as my disease further advanced and got its claws more and more in me, moderating became less and less possible, to the point where I would suffer consequences and still not be able to control my behavior. I also wanted to talk about right around 14 minutes and 15 seconds. Anthony talks about, am I a weed smoker with goals? When he's calling into Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla. And for a long time, that was how I rationalized it. I think a lot of us have been there. As long as we're getting the important things done in life, it's almost like a shield or justification or rationalization for our use. Also, at about 39 minutes, we're talking about seeing other people who may potentially have problems with addiction, but again, it's not something we can do for them. It's kind of that concept that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't really make it drink. In other words, if you see someone else who's struggling, if they haven't decided that they've had enough and that they're all done and that they're going to make a serious effort about trying to get clean, there's nothing anybody can do about it. Like I said, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Also, at 41 minutes, I think 41 minutes and 30 seconds, Anthony and I are talking about friends and connection and how that's an amazing thing. And I think I've mentioned this before. In fact, I know I have. But, I talk about how I find it suspicious that all the times I tried to quit cold turkey by myself without having any other connections or without having any other social interaction, I failed miserably. And that the one time I did it with the help of a group of like-minded individuals is the one time that it was successful. And now I've got all these great relationships in my life. And, as Anthony put it, I'd have to give all this up if I decided to go back to the old way. So not only would I be inviting that pain and that hopelessness back into my life, but I'd also get rid of all these great things that I've attained by getting clean. All right, so that's it. That's all I got. If you found this helpful, take a moment to share it with others. If you're listening on YouTube, take a moment to comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff. If you're listening on iTunes, scroll down to the ratings and review section and provide a rating, write a review. I can also be reached via email at selfinflictedrrl@gmail.com. Again, this is that's selfinflictedrrl@gmail.com. And I sincerely hope this helps some of you guys out there. That's all I had for you. Hope everybody has a great evening. Louis out.